So when I started running because I read an article about ultramarathons like the Grand to Grand Ultra. I read an article, and what fascinated me about this article that I read in this magazine was that people that seemed so ordinary were in fact extraordinary. What I mean is, if you open up a magazine like Sports Illustrated and you look at an Olympic level marathon runner, they look like runners, right? But the people in the article I was reading about in ultramarathons looked very regular and ordinary, like the people next door, and I was so inspired by that. I thought, if they can do it, I want to try. So I entered my first ultramarathon, and I won it against all odds. I never even ran in a 5K race. And that led me around the world. I decided that if I could do this, I'd never won anything in my life. As a matter of fact, for comic relief, it's too bad we don't have a ball on the stage, because I would try and throw one for you guys. Like, I grew up, I couldn't throw a ball. I'm Canadian, couldn't skate or play hockey. Those were not my sports. But I discovered I could run, right? After taking a chance, after making a decision, after reading this article. So anyhow, it leads me to the Amazon jungle. And I enter a race that was 150 miles long. And in this race, like the G2G, all the competitors have to wear backpacks. And in your backpack is your emergency gear and your clothing and your food. And you would have to swim through swamps full of piranha and caiman to get from one trail to the next in this race. And in the Amazon jungle, everything wants to eat you, including the air. Like the minute you get in the jungle, you're being eaten, it seems like, by everything. Partway through this race, I got stung by some wasps that were in the Amazon. I kept on going, but these where I got stung swelled up. I was quite concerned about it, so I had some antibiotics and I took them, and then I thought that was going to be the end of it. I got home. And about a month after I got home, one day, I was talking to my wife on the phone. She was at work, and I said, Kath, her name's Kathy. I said, Kath, the back of my leg is really sore. And I said, I feel like I have a bit of a fever. And she said, well, you better go to the hospital. I said, oh, yeah, I think you're right. So I go to the hospital, and by the time I get to the hospital, it was like a football on the back of my leg, right? And there was like this little hole. What's that all about? So the doctors freeze my leg, and they cut open, and they said, there's a big infection in there. It's all over, but we don't see anything. And I'm like, well, it's not. There's no relief. Like they cut open. Take these antibiotics. I started taking more antibiotics. I forgot about it. 2 weeks after that, fever, this time to my back. And I look in the mirror in my lower back, and I see a little black dot. And I thought, well, I'll see how it feels tomorrow. Get up the next day, it's bigger. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. And I'm realizing now that I got stung in 2 places when I was in the Amazon, in the back of my leg, and in my back. So I go and see my travel doctor, and he looks at this and he says, oh, I think I've seen this before. This is a parasite that on the stingers of these wasps, it's microscopic almost, it's a micro, it gets in there, and then it starts to grow, and your body fights the infection. So in the case of the one of my back, it had developed into this massive infection, right? The parasite's in there, right? But it's surrounded now by this infection, and it's died. So I go to the doctor, and they start cleaning things out. They say, we just got to keep this area clean, and you got to take care of it. This is where it gets really gross. Are you ready for this? All right. So my wife is cleaning my back, my sore one day, because I couldn't see. It was too hard to see. And she's cleaning, and all of a sudden, she said, wait a sec. It looks like there's an edge on it or something. And she had these tweezers, and she was poking at it, and she pulled it, and it was like, boom, this green thing the size of my thumb fell out of my back. And I had a hole in my back then that you could put your finger in, right? And so we put it into a little baggie, and we sent it to the CDC to find out what it was. And it turned out it was that parasite. Isn't that a great story? Yeah. And now I have a scar. Anybody else? You want a question? Any questions? Ask me anything. Throw some out there. Yes, you. Oh, that's a great question. She asked, what is the hardest place that I've ever ran? So, since running the Sahara, I have ran in 12 different expeditions around the world. I would have to say And that's a really good question. Siberia was really tough because it was so cold and it was extremely humid. By the end of the Siberian expedition, we had to kick our sleeping bags open because they were full of ice. And all of our clothing was wet and it wouldn't dry. Because you're running during the day on the ice in Siberia, and you're perspiring just a little bit. They always say in the cold, never perspire. It's a death sentence. Well, I'll tell you something, it's almost impossible not to sweat a little bit when you're running, even if it's cold out. So your clothing never dried. So hypothermia, frostbite, these were all really big issues for us. So I would say that was probably the ones but also crossing Death Valley last year, I'll tell you something, it is aptly named. That place is unbelievable. The salt was like being on a coral reef, walking through a coral reef. To cover 13 miles, it took me over 10 hours. Very, very difficult. So I would say those are the most. I saw another hand here. Yes? I trained to go across the Sahara, yes. So I ran approximately in my training 20 miles per day. Because let's face it, if you're going to run 40 miles per day, I mean, you can't train that much at home, then you can't work. And there's no time to eat, and I love to eat, right? So, gotta make time for it. Yes? Hottest weather I've ever been in is Death Valley, California for sure. And it was 127 Fahrenheit on my thermometer, which was a fairly accurate thermometer. And second would be in the Sahara Desert in Niger, and it would have been about 121 Fahrenheit. And the Atacama Desert in Chile was about the same temperature. Yes, sir, you in front. Hang on, can I say it again? Oh, wow, that's a great question. Really quick. Are we going to have 17 to 21-year-olds run in the Grand to Grand? As a matter of fact, Ferg and another member of our I2P team are going to lead 2 groups in the Grand to Grand. So we will be having team members from our former youth expeditions, but we are also planning in the not too distant future, if we can make it work, Bob and I have already discussed this, and you'll be the first ones to officially hear this, that we would love to do a youth-based expedition right here in Kanab. And so, yes, in both aspects. And by the way, I should mention this for teachers that are in the room. Is there any teachers in here right now, faculty? All of our programs are 100% free. All of the video conferencing software is free. All of the youth ambassadors, they don't pay a nickel to come on our expeditions. That's why we're so thankful to have the generous support of the G2G team, because getting these youth out there and having them experience the world and the things that we do is very costly. And so, to keep it free, we need the support. You're holding your arm up, it's about to fall off. Yeah? Yeah, you holding it. You guys, both of you, put it together into one question. Did you just say beep, beep? What's that? The funnest place I've ran, honestly? I think it had to be what's the name of the slot canyon we were in? Peekaboo. That was amazing. I've never seen anything like that. It just sort of ended. And then we went up and then came out of it. So peekaboo. Yes, you? Spiders and snakes. Do we still have time? Is the hook coming out? 5 minutes? 2 minutes? Okay, spiders and snakes. Biggest spider I ever saw. Seriously. Amazon jungle. It was a tarantula. It was a bird-eating spider. I almost stepped on it. And I am absolutely terrified of spiders. Interesting thing. In the Amazon, when I was there, listen up, I want you to hear this. In the Amazon, when I was there, and I was swimming through those swamps, and I was almost stepping on giant tarantulas, and I actually had spiders on me that I would just brush off. I was afraid of nothing. I was afraid of nothing. You know why? The goal. All I cared about was accomplishing my goal. And it's amazing. When you have a goal in mind, and mine was to get to the end of that race, nothing else is important. And you go into this sort of tunnel vision focus. Has anybody ever tried to thread a needle? Right? Right? Or tried to plug your Nintendo game into the TV in the dark? And you're trying to get intensely focused, right? That's what it's like. I was so intensely focused, I was afraid of nothing. You know? Fear is the greatest inhibitor for the things that we want to do. Many times, we want to say something or we want to do something, but we're afraid to. So I have a saying, and that is that we can be our own worst enemies. But anyhow, back to the spiders. So the spider that I almost stepped on in the Amazon was about that big. I'm not kidding you. It was that big. It was hairy. It was like a small cat. As a matter of fact, when I was walking, I almost stepped on it, and he actually crouched out of the way and crawled away. Like he acted like a furry animal. It wasn't like a spider. It sort of leaned, and then big spider. Snake. Biggest snake was the coolest snake I ever saw was a viper in Niger. Again, I almost stepped on it. I'm almost stepping on these things all the time. Extremely poisonous. You? If there are? Yeah. Yeah.
What food do you guys do after a race?
Eat, and eat. No. 3 best things to do after a race. So you really miss. You don't really miss. I mean, obviously, it's to share the stories. Because guaranteed after a race or after an event, right away after that's over, you feel like you have so many things you just want to tell your friends. So many things you learned about yourself. So I'd have to say telling stories is the best thing to do after a race. And if you're talking about from a physical perspective, for recovery, lots of carbs and protein. The arm over there that's about to fall. Yeah?
When did you get Mrs. Terry's new stove?
He went
Do teens? I have. And I've also ran solo. When I crossed the Atacama Desert, I was alone for various parts, and Bob came and joined me. I've run a lot of it on my own.
so they could.
Okay, one more question? One more question, yes, you. Yes. That hand was really high. How did you see it was so high up?
Credit card and then I told him to try it again.
See? That's good.
He gets you food.
I can't use 6 times.
What continent haven't I been on? Okay, so, well, I was going to make a guessing game out of it. I can't think of an interesting way to do it. Australia. It's the only one. Who's been to Australia? Send me an email. Let me know what it's like. Maybe we'll go someday. Well, thank you all so much. You guys, you're good, fantastic. Thank you.